Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show Looking Back With, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, and Motivate. Join us tonight to look back with is Andy Colledge. Andy, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you very much for having us.
Excellent. Really looking forward to the show. Like you say, a lot about your coaching. That's what we're going to get straight into. And going from playing into coaching, how did it all start for yourself? Was it kind of come to the end of your playing days, or you just thought, all right, I'm going to get into that now, I really fancy that?
I wouldn't say I fancied it when I was playing. I wasn't playing on a Saturday. I think my last club on a Saturday was Jarrah. But I was just playing Sundays, and I was about 32, 33. And a good mate of mine who I was playing with on a Sunday, Woody, he works at Gateshead College, and he had something to do with the young lads there. And there was a team in the Wearside League, bearing in mind this is 16, 17 years ago, called East Durham United. Mm-hmm. And what they'd done was, there was a good under at the inside running out of Southern RCA, and the manager wanted to keep them together. And he put them in the Wearside League. It's East Durham United. And they were good young lads, but they were struggling. They were like 9 points adrift or something. And Woody went in to run them. And he asked if I would go in and help him. And It was more like as a player type coach thing. But I started to enjoy it, and I thought, I think I fancy a bit of this. And it just led from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, you went through your playing days as well. I mean, when you've worked under different managers, do you pick good and bad points up from all the managers that you've worked under for the time, build up the coaching days?
Obviously, now that I am coaching, and when I first started doing it, you do. It's more of, I mean, I played under some managers who I love playing under them, but like some brutal managers who would tell you how it was, and if you want to pull in your weight and stuff, and you've got both barrels. And I've seen managers have lads up by the throat and stuff. Obviously, you can't get away with that nowadays. But yeah, I would, looking back, I probably have. Picked up good and bad, but it's how you get your message across for me. I mean, I still like to bollock a player, but you can get inside the head and saying you're letting yourself down type thing. So yeah, I would say you do pick up good and bad from both, from all of them.
Yeah, and going into the Easington coach and managing just at 32, how was them first steps going at that, obviously that football club at that age?
I mean, it was similar to the East Durham situation. Obviously, the East Durham thing finished. We'd done about 6-7 months there, me and Woody, and I had no intention of doing it the following season. I thought, I was going to finish off my career on a Sunday, and obviously I had a young Ben at the time, and Brian Maitland approached us and said, would you be interested in doing the same here? He was manager, Addy was assistant, and I said, I go on there, I'll try it. And basically, I was just doing a bit of coaching. I was doing the warm-ups and stuff, and I played a little bit, and I started to enjoy it. And we had a half-decent season. I think we finished about 6th. And then what happened was the end of that season, maybe it was about 10 games into the following season, Brian took the Crook job. They were in the second division of the Northern League at the time, and he's in the Wearside League. Brian took the Crook job, and Addy went in as manager, and Addy asked me to be assistant, and that's when it really started. So this was like, maybe it was about 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, your time there, how did you feel that it went? And I mean, looking back now, do you look back to say, right, that was my first really learning curve after East Durham, like, and obviously the Wearside pushing on to touch on the Northern League, do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, the time of days, there's a story in itself. Bear in mind, I started as a coach who would play now and again, to then move up to assistant manager, and then the end of the second season with Addy, he agreed to go up to Crook with Brian, and the chairman approached me and said, would I be interested in being manager? And I was like, go on, I fancy this. I mean, the time 33, 34-year-old, my playing days was done. And what happened was a lot of the players went up to Crook, but 5, maybe 6 or 7 stayed. But we had a young side. So what I did is I leant back on some of the lads who we had at East Durham, and I leant back on maybe a few lads who I'd played with, who were a bit younger than me. And we put a side together. And it was really enjoyable the first season in the Wearside League. It was, I mean, looking back, I was really naive. But the plan was, look, just let these lads play football. I mean, in that side, obviously Joe, I think, goal. Chris Tarn was only about 22, 23 at the time. Dan Flounders young, by the two Huntleys. Signed Dale Crawford, who was a good friend, ex-Blythe Spartans. He was probably his early 30s. Paul Taylor from RCA, centre forward, was scoring goals for fun. And basically, we just, looking back, I was just like, look, just lads, just go and play football, just go and enjoy it. And we hit the ground running, flying. I think we went about 3 months unbeaten. And I was like, well, this is a bit easy, isn't it? And then we got to round about November time. And bearing in mind, looking back now, if I could have done it differently, we needed some experience in there. But I think we're at one stage we were like 17, 18 points clear of Riop going into Christmas. Nice. And then the heavy pitches didn't help. And it's sort of like, it stopped us playing the way we were used to playing when we couldn't play on the heavy pitches. But in fairness to Riop and Swaz, the turn of the year, they just didn't drop a point, and they clawed that gap back, and we had to play them twice. And they eventually went on to win it, deservedly so as well. And they actually beat us in a cup final. I think they won the lot that year. Yeah, so the 3 cups and the league.
I think didn't mention that on your show, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to Swaz, I mean, John Butler, True, young Swanner at the back, but he had a bit of experience in there as well. And obviously, Swaz had been around the game a little bit longer than me. And look, fair play to them, they won the league. But what actually happened was, the last game of the season, they lifted the trophy at our ground, but we got promoted and they didn't. They went up.
Right.
Sorry, we went up. And they didn't because of ground restrictions. I mean, at the time then, it was really hard to get out the Northern League. And I mean, Riop had a bit of a funny couple of seasons. They actually went up, won the league and got relegated and had to come back up again. But yeah, we went up. So then the following season was how mad it went. In the meantime of Addy leaving and going to Crook, there was a change of chairman. And the original chairman, who was like an Easton bloke through and through, he moved down south to live with his daughter. So there's another fella come in who wasn't from the area, and he come in with, I think he come in to run it as a business, but again, I was naive. And the budget we had there, right, and I've no reason to lie, the budget we had was, it was £15 for a win, £10 for a draw, and you actually got a fiver if you got beat, and a little brown envelope.
Nice.
I won't lie, Paul Taylor did get a little bit more. We used to run a few football cards to keep Taylor happy. But what happened when we went to the Northern League? So obviously first season got us promoted, and we were like, wow, we've done well here. But then we got into Northern League, and I remember we were about 3-4 games in, and I was getting whispers off the chairman saying, "Oh look, there's no money." I mean, 15 quid. But so I was like, right, well, it is what it is. We'll get on with it. But he was still paying out. And then I remember on the bus coming back from Whitehaven, and he just leant over the seat and went, "Andy, I've got no money to pay the players." I went, "What do you mean you've got no money?" He says, "Well, we've just got no money." I was like, I went, "Right, let's see what happens. We'll not pay them the day, and we'll have a meeting." And this gradually went on for 2 or 3 weeks. He was just like, "Look, there is no budget." So obviously went back to the players, explained the situation. And as players do, not going nowhere. And then eventually it just started to dwindle, and you could see the cracks start to happen after about 10, 12 games in. And I mean, look, I don't hold any grudge against any players who can go and make a few quid for themselves. And 1 or 2 left, and it gradually it started to fall apart, and it was like, right, we're struggling a bit now. And I actually stepped down. I said, look, it's probably best to get somebody else in with local contacts, etc. And then after about 10, 12 games, the lad who got in, he decided he didn't want to do it. So the chairman then rang me back and said, "Look, will you just come in and help us steady the ship until see what's happening?" And this is when it just went absolutely stupid, because I came back. I approached Don Naylor, who was a local fella, and I said, "Look, Don, we've got about 5-6 players here. Can you help us?" He knows the local area. So we brought in a lot of local lads who were just playing Sunday morning football. But so we steadied the ship, as in like getting bodies on the pitch, and fair play to the lads that were trying. And we took a couple of tankings. Somewhere in Newcastle where we got, I think it was something like 12 we got put past us. In any case, I get home, I'm having a drink on the night, and round about that time there was no Twitter, or there was Twitter, but it was very in its use, and as in like none of this where you can catch up on it, what teams are doing, etc., etc. It was all non-league zone. So I read on non-league zone, or somebody texted and said, "Have you read non-league zone? Easton's folded." And I went, "Well, that's news to me." I said, "Now we just took it." Any case, so the following day, I rings the chairman. He went, "Oh, I folded the club." I went, "Well, you can't just fold the club. I think there's other people involved in it." So I had to get in touch with Mike Amos, who was then chairman of the league, and he went, "Oh, he's put the resignation in." So I was like, "Well, what do we do here, Mike? Because there's obviously people involved in the club and want to keep it going." He went, "Well, you'll have to call I think it was an EGM. It was called, not an EGM. So we had to call this meeting at the local club. And cut a long story short, the chairman didn't turn up. He handed all the paperwork over, and then I thought, as I walked up this meeting, I'm thinking, I've gone from being a manager to now I'm a chairman, and I'm thinking, this is. So I then thought to myself, right. So me and Don sat down. We had like Alan, the secretary. Obviously, the chairman was treasurer at the time. We had one old fella, bless him, great bloke, who would come and put the nets up, and we had an old fella who would work in the survey. Them two actually said, "Look, we've had enough, blah, blah, blah." So I approached Addy at the time, who was an Easington fella, or obviously Easington through and through, and he had left Crook at the time, him and Brian. I think they'd actually been sacked, if I remember right. Any case, so I approached Addy and said, "Look, can you fancy coming in and help us?" So we got Addy on board. So I've then put Addy in as manager with Don, and now I'm trying to build a committee. So I'm like secretary, treasurer, and this, like, obviously we got over the season. But what happened was, so when we got the paperwork and we looked through it, there was a lot of outstanding bills, and I'm thinking, well, how do we get out of this? So this needed paying, pitch fees, electricity fees, etc., etc. And I'm then struggling here, and I'm thinking, in any case, Brad Groves at Spenny got wind of it, so Brad rang us up. But Andy, look, what's the crack? Obviously, tell him the situation. He went, right, get yourself up Leachy's house tomorrow, and he'll give you some money to get some bills paid, and fair play to Brad. So knocks on Leachy's door the next day and hands us an envelope. I think it was £1,000 in it. And he went, right, that just pay your bills, what you need to do with that. And then Brad put like a charity game on at Spenny, where we went up and played Spenny in a friendly. And he gave us like the gate receipts, the bar receipts. I remember actually standing at the bar with him, and he says, "Look, if you need it, just let us know, blah, blah." And he chucked another couple of £100 out. So what we did is we evened the club out. We paid all the bills to what was owed. And then obviously the season went on, about 5-6 games in. And I'm then realising how a club works. So we had no income other than probably the 10 blokes that would come through the gate, which is what we were getting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Them 10 blokes might have bought a pie, so you weren't making much off that. So obviously we got our heads together. We set up a little, like a predict the score, got a meat raffle, and people were like whipping around. But basically we were just surviving. We couldn't pay a player. And we, in fairness, we got to the end of the season and we actually nearly stayed up. We beat CM Red Star at home. The reason I mentioned the CM Red Star game is because I was on that day. So I've gone from, in the space of 2.5, 3 years, I've gone from standing in the dugout. I was serving behind the servery. I was flipping burgers. And we scored in the last kick of the game to beat CM. And that put us, at the time, there was only one went down. But we dropped a couple of the points, blah, blah. The season's finished, and we actually went down, and Riot came up, obviously, after the season before. We were neck and neck for the league. So it gets to the end of the season, and I spoke to Addy. I went, look, obviously, Addy, we've kept the club afloat. Do you want it? It's yours. You're an Easington fella. Yeah, you know the area. And obviously, Addy was like, yes, obviously, he didn't want the club to go under, because I was 35, 36-year-old, and didn't want to be a chairman. So obviously, I handed the club over to Addy, and I then stepped away from adult football then. But fair play to Addy for the job he's done in the last 10 years. I mean, the club's gone from, they were struggling in the Wayside League for the first season, and now they're a good, solid top 8, top 6 side in the second division of the Northern League, and they have been for the last 4 or 5 years. And when you go to the ground now, there's a lot of work going on. Pitch is perfect, and he's really, really stabilised the club and pushed it forward. I mean, some of the crowds is decent as well. Honestly, when it was the East Durham Triangle at the time, you'd lost. Shotton had gone. Peter Lee was struggling in the Wayside League with us. They were struggling in the Wayside League with the Northern League. Sea and Red Star were bottom of the league with us, and Horden. So them 3 teams are fighting relegation. And now you go to one of them games in the East Durham bit, and it's now there's healthy crowds, and there's 3 very healthy clubs there now. You know, yeah. So it's good to see.
Nah, it's mad. But like you say, a lot of people watching, honestly, I don't think a lot of people realise what goes on behind the scenes. So I think it'd be nice people listening in to see you've gone from, like you say, manager, chairman, flipping burgers, and it's crazy what goes on in the Northern League, isn't it? And it's happened to, I would say, there's one team every season it happens to now when you look at it, isn't it?
It does. Yeah, I mean, when I was playing the Northern League, late 90s, you look at it. I mean, you lose teams either way now, so there's the teams in the first division have to take promotion if they finish the top 2. Where before they used to turn it down, so your top 10 sides in the first division would be round about the same teams. But so you've got teams going that way, then you have the feeder teams going in. But years ago, it would be like, I mean, it would be the same teams all the time who would be struggling, and it tend to be your old little pit villages. Obviously, once you shoot the pits, and I didn't realise when the pits was open. I was talking with the old chairman of Eton 15 years ago, and he said when the pits was open, every person who worked down the pit had £1 took out the wages. Right. And that went into what you call a colliery welfare pot, and that helped pay for your bowling, your cricket, your football, etc., etc. Obviously, once they shut the pits, they lost a lot of that funding. They lost it all, didn't they? So now, obviously, you've got to go out and source funding, and players don't see what goes on, so they can get this little bit of expenses, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
And especially in these old pit villages. I mean, look, anybody who raises a decent budget as a club, I tip me hat to them. If you can go and raise a decent budget and pay players decent money, fair play to you and well done, because you've gone and raised it, you know, and you've done it, and whichever way you've done it, then great.
Oh, really good. And I just want to say thank you everyone that's watching so far. Fantastic crowd. Any comments, get them in, and please hit that subscribe button as well. I've just laughed when you mentioned Swansea. He's just been to my doorstep about an hour ago, dropping something off ready for the charity game for next Sunday that we're playing in for Gaz Pearson as well. Just literally been talking at the door. So funny that you mention them. And getting on to obviously the kids football side of things as well. And you've been involved with football, the youth side of things for years now. I mean, how did that all start with the youth football for yourself?
Did Swaz try to sell you a kitchen when he was there, by the way?
Didn't mention one.
Doesn't surprise us. No, he's a good lad, Swaz. He's a good lad. The coaching side, kids level, was obviously, as I was second season with Eton, my oldest started playing, and like I'd say 90% of coaches in kids football get involved because they have a child playing it. And it started out as that, but I'd had a previous interest, obviously, of the past 3-4 years in coaching. So obviously took out chat up, blah, blah, blah. And we obviously set a team away at Plains Farm, which was one of like the bigger clubs in the Sunderland area at the time. And it just led from there, really. After about a season, I was approached from the chairman as if I would go and do the what we would call the Friday night tot sessions, where we would take kids between 4 and 6 year old. And that would just be like fun and games. And then once they got to like 6, 6.5, we'd put them into little groups and then let them go off and be like the new under sevens. And it grew that much. I mean, at the time, there was only us in Sunderland doing it. So there was me and like I had a young lad helping us out. And Friday nights in the summer up at Plains Farm, we'd have between 50 and 60 kids turning up. Wow. And I mean, it was great for the kids. They used to often go and play football for an hour and a half. And what our job was to put them into little groups of 7 and 8 and 9s, and then just get them into little teams. And then obviously you had to source a coach amongst the parents, a secretary, a treasurer, and it just built from there. I'd done that for about 3 years, but I would be getting approached by parents, and they would be saying, "Look, do you do one-to-one sessions? Is there anything else we can do?" And it's sort of like built up like a little bit of a business, and then. Obviously, I was a self-employed taxi driver, so this was a little bit on the side, and it just built from there. And from that, I was approached by, at the time, it was probably the only coaching school, coaching business at the time, which was Imratech, which was Martin Scott, who we used to in Sunderland. He approached us and asked if I would do some work. I mean, Scott was a great coach, and he had the intake at Horton Keeping. I went there to work with Scotty, and in that meantime, I was approached from Newcastle. It was quite clever what Newcastle done, to be fair, because they didn't have a scout in the Sunderland area. So Glenn pulled us to one side, who was like head of recruitment there, and said, "Would you come and do a bit of scouting for us?" And I'm obviously at first you're like thinking, "Oh, I've made the big time here. Like I'm gonna go on, be sitting on the bench with Rafa here." But what it was is obviously he wanted me in that area, so I'm taking 60, 70 kids. It's Plains Farm and Intertech, and I'm getting my first eye on them. So then I'm sending the reports into Newcastle on these 6, 7-year-olds, and obviously it worked. And I worked for Newcastle for about 10 years. Then, along with that, I was approached by a little bit later on by a bloke called Aidan Tasker, who is the chairman of Sunderland Schools FA, which is the secondary schools, and asked if I would go and do some coaching with them. Basically, I still do this job now, and what my job is now is, so I call it second year comp, third year comp, fourth year comp. It's now year 7, 8, 9s, and 10s, whatever it's called. So under 13s, 14s, 15s, email every school in like June, July, and we'll ask them to send what they think is their best players from each school. So 13s there, 14s, and we'll do trials, and then obviously you've got to narrow that down to like a squad of 16 to 18, and then obviously they go and play different districts, i.e. your Newcastles, your East and South Northumberland, etc., etc. And it was really good at first, but I've been doing that about 5 years. That schools football's really, really started to struggle lately. And that probably coincides with that there's a lot of grassroots football on a Saturday in Sunderland, where you go to anywhere else in the country, a lot of it's on a Sunday. So you can't get these games played. So what we've had to start doing is we've moved them to a Friday night on these hubs, but then there's the expense, so that's what I have been doing and still do in grassroots football. Obviously, the same group of players I had from under 7s, I mean, obviously you lose a few as you go along. I took the majority, or a lot of them, up to under 16s, and then a lot of them obviously went after academies and stuff, and then what we had left we went to Horden with, and that was the link into Horden from there.
Yeah, really interesting. Really interesting. And Ian just mentioned there, I heard about 60 volunteers that helped make Darlton home game happen as a part of, like they say, the fan-owned club. Like massive. I mean, the amount of money that the fans put in the club every season and boost the budget as well. Absolutely massive there, the volunteers. And just mention what happened to Gary. Unfortunately, we lost Gary, heart attack, and we are going to be playing a charity game next Sunday for the Red Sky Foundation. Like you say, get across the Facebook page if you can donate anything. The link is in our Facebook group as well. It should be a really good laugh next week as well. But yeah, getting back to the youth football, and I mean, I did it for 16 years and then kind of went adult football for a few years. And like you say, go along and watch your son now, and after a couple of games, can you watch for 1 week, and that turns into 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 14 games later, here I am. And it just kind of, it has a lot changed since when I did it like 16 years ago compared to doing it this season. I just wanted to get your thoughts on a few things. Obviously the parents on the sidelines, I know now they've got the respect barriers and stuff where there's not too much I see it on a Sunday more on the touchline where we go and play at these hubs. The parents have to stay behind the metal, obviously, fences at sub, but there's always one or two still trying to get on. What's your thoughts on the parents in youth football?
I mean, I suppose like everything in football, in my opinion, everybody's emotionally invested in it, whether it be the coach, the player, the referee, the parent, and they're all there for the same reason, to watch that game of football.
Yeah.
Parents, in my opinion, what I want to see, I can't, because if I had my way, I would ban the lot and just let the kids play. But you can't do that because people, the bad ones spoil for the good ones, in my opinion. Obviously, you have these respect barriers, and big bugbear for mine when I was coaching kids, especially as tots, is coaching from the sideline. It's what I call sat-nav coaching. So they've got the kid on like a little joystick, run left, run right. Kick. There's that much information being shouted at a 6-year-old kid. He hasn't got a clue. He just wants to chase the ball. It's getting to the point, though, where I think it will become a silent touchline, especially at a younger age, where you're just not allowed to see anything. Maybe it's clap. Yeah. And that's the way I think it'll go in the next 10 years. I mean, I was watching a tournament, I'll not say where, over the Christmas, and there was maybe it's under 8s, under 9s, and the keepers stand here as they do in the middle of the goal, and as they do, go and stand on him. So the coaches tell the kid to go and stand on the keeper, and the kid who stood on the keeper is the coach's son. That's the gist I got later on. The keepers nudged him, kids nudged him back, and coaches actually shouted, "I'll not swear," but he basically told his son to give him it, and there was a bit of swearing in that, and then all hell's broke loose, and I'm thinking, under 9s, like
Crazy,
that's what you're shouting at your son at under 9s. Yeah, it's scary. But then you do get good parents, you get the ones who turn up and they go and stand, put the hood up out the way, and they just watch the bands play, and whatever they do, they'll come off after, and they'll tell the band that they've done this right, and the them's, in my opinion, that's the better ones. But I do think it'll become a silent touchline within the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And the setup of games as well. I mean, when I first did the youth football, right back at the start, it was kind of, I think it was 7-a-side right up until under 11s, and it was literally you would chuck straight into a massive pitch. And I just remember these little goalkeepers standing in these massive nets, and it was just hit as high as you can, and it was a goal. But obviously now the step up from 5 to 7s, I think to 9 and 11. I mean, what do you think that's helped with obviously developing in the youth football area?
I do personally, if it's policed right. I remember when this was first come in, I was at a course, or I was and it was at Horton Keeper School at the time, and Gareth Southgate coming to speak to people. He was the then England under-21 manager, and they were implemented for the next season under 5v5, 7v7, 9v9. I actually remember, to tell the truth, just thinking, I can't see that working. I remember he said was, so if little Johnny has the ball 2 yards off the line and he tries to turn and turn out and passes the ball, don't shout at him, because he'll not try to do that again. Where I was automatically thinking, well, I'm going to be telling him to get rid, and I cringe at that now, But what they were trying to implement is 5v5 is obviously your goalkeeper, then what we call the diamond, and then you have the retreat line with it. They brought the retreat line in, which was opposition players running up the halfway line. What they're trying to introduce is keeper passing it out, and then we get loads of touches of the ball on all these kids, which works when, in my opinion, you have a good coach who is not bothered about the result and is focused on getting kids to get loads of touches of the ball, especially at a young age. And that's great, because obviously by the time they're pressing, can they get the head up, can they the pass around the the little press that's coming on them, and they're going to lose it sometimes. And if the right stuff's put onto the pitch, then in my opinion, it's going to develop players better. What you get is, though, you get somebody who's got his Pep Guardiola head on, and he wants to put his trophy on Facebook that he's won and on his mantelpiece. So he's got his keeper launching the ball onto the opposition's goalkeeper, and he's got the biggest kid he's got in his team up front to blast the ball at the net. Now, after 2 years, this big lad who he's got up front has scored 225 goals, and it's on somebody's Facebook status, but the other 3 players that's played on this team haven't touched the ball, so there's no development in it, is it? That's the bugbear for me. Then you move to 7v7. I think the 9v9 one's a really good one, because it was smaller goals, not jumping from the 7 to the 11s. I think if it's policed right and the coaches are doing it the right way, I'm all for it, and I always have been. Probably after about 6 months of watching it develop and see what it was about. There's the argument as well, is though there's no league tables for under 11s down over. You don't keep the score. I agree with it. I 100% agree with it, because the kid should want 100%. The coach should want to win. And should, but they've had a gun about with them. And 10 minutes after the game, if they've been beat, they're sitting in the car with a hot dog, so they're not really bothered, are they? And it's developing players. The problem you've got is social media, in my opinion, is because people want to put this stuff on social media. Do I look back and cringe? Yeah. Everybody's proud of their own kids, but for me, just let the kids play.
Yeah, and the next one, I mean, I think this one's on split opinions when I've heard things on the sideline. Is you'll say, I mean, for example, us on Sunday, I think we were 4-0 up after 5 or 6 minutes, and the referee says, right, you bring that extra player on, and some think, well, no, you should have to take a batter and then learn from that. I think it's quite good how they bring the extra player on just to try and help that side, even just have 5 players, where some people say, no, it should be kept right, 7v7. I mean, what's your thoughts on that one?
I agree. You should be allowed to put an extra player on. No kid should be taking a battering in football. It could put a kid off wanting to play football altogether for the rest of his life. I just don't agree with that at all. A half decent coach would maybe take one of his own players off. But then you've got the other side of that is if you could approach the other coach, so you're winning 5-0, and you say to the other coach, mate, do you want to put a player on or should I take a player off? He might see that as arrogance and say, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, there's loads of little things. For me, it needs policing right at the top. We've got loads and loads and loads of kids playing football now. And what you have is, so you go back, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago, if you weren't good enough, you didn't get picked for the team, whether it be the school team or your local team. And now you have a team for every child, which is great. So you've got 10 divisions of under sevens. It's great. What you then might do is they might say, all right, we're going to put a winter league on. Who wants to go in it? Only might be 20 teams want to go in that. But you might have 2 from Division 10, 3 from Division 6, and the more from the Division 1, they might put you all in one league. What good is it to the 2 at the bottom? So whoever's policing it should look at it and think, look, and then contact and say, look, this is what's going to happen. You know, just want to play this other team who's in your level, maybe for 3 friendlies over the next 3 weeks. It needs, that's where that happens for me. I'm all for putting extra players on and stuff, but in my opinion, when coaches are talking what division you're in, or we shouldn't really be playing yet. It's not fair on the kids. Do you know what I mean? So if it's policed better before it happens, that's what I would be looking to do.
Yeah, and finally on the kids side of things, I mean, I think we see this on Facebook and Twitter every other day at the minute. It's the academy wording. A lot of coaches saying that this is my academy, whatever, this is what it's named by. I know it's an ongoing argument, I think, at the minute. I mean, what's your thoughts on the coaching side and the academy getting the name getting mentioned?
I mean, there's a few points. I mean, that when I first got into coaching, there was only Imratech going, who Scotty had, and Cy and that had going. And then you had, obviously, South Shields at the time were probably Northern League. I think Scotty was actually coaching there. And then they went up, and I can see what South Shields is trying to do because they're running under 16s, 17s, 18s. And if they produce one player over a 3-year period, fantastic, because they're getting a player. If they get 3 players out, it's fantastic. What I like is, though, the one that you do, same situation. Obviously, you feed into Chelsea Street United's first team, but what Chelsea Street United have is a team in the Northern League, a team in the Weeside, and they also playing a lot of football during the week. So for me, where you potentially have 22 in one group, 2 kids, 45 minutes a game, 45 minutes a week. That's how that age between 16 to 18. That's where kids drop off the cliff. Yeah. That's where they stop playing. So for me, that's where it's got to be policed better. As in, like, get them loads of football, get teams in competitive leagues. That's why you're being competitive. And can you go from that jump of youth football to men's football? There are 2 good ones. There's obviously some other clubs who do it. I'm all for that. What I'm not all for is these pretend, as we call it, coaching schools and stuff. And I mean, I've done some one-to-ones, and I'm not saying I was a good coach, but one-to-ones are draining, really, really draining to do an hour with one kid and move on to an hour with another. And I think lockdown, there was about 200 businesses in Sunderland set up in lockdown, wasn't there? Because you were allowed back on the pitch and then obviously getting out with kids. Yeah. What I would always see it to a parent is, you're looking for a team or you're looking for a coach, just make sure you're a good one. You know, obviously, if you go to play for a football team, don't pick the team or the kids that's in the team. Is the coach going to develop your boy or girl to be a better player in person? Not about the results of winning stuff. And that's where I'm probably at with that. And it's a fast-growing industry, isn't it? It's a business now, isn't it?
Yeah, massive business. And you mentioned some of, obviously, the clubs that you've worked for in the youth side of things, and you've coached a lot of lads now for 10 years plus, and some of them got on at a very good level. I mean, it must be proud to see them lads go on and do that, like you say, the levels that they've played at.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think any coach who's worked through grassroots levels and had kids from a young age, and I mean, I love it now. And obviously, I go to Twitter and I'll check on a Saturday night. I'll check 15, 20 team sheets, and you can see, oh, well, he's doing well, or he's got a game there, and you can read the comments and stuff. And it's fantastic. That's what it's all about, though, in my opinion, when you're coaching grassroots football, is trying to develop kids to go and play at adult football. In my opinion, you can be the best player you can, the best player on the pitch, all the way through youth level. Once you get into men's football, can you do it in that? And you have some kids who weren't very good all the way through kids football, go to men's football and really kicked on. And the flip side of that is you've had good players who's then gone into men's football and thought, hold on, I'm struggling a bit here. And for me, to look back on some of the players I've coached and watch them, kick on in men's football, it's fantastic. And for me, that's what I've always said to them. I've never said, look, I'm going to meet you a professional footballer. What I said is, I'll get you ready for the Northern League. And that's what I've always done with them, especially from an older age, from 14 to 18s. And every player I had from that age group, see, I had a group of 16, there was at least 10 of them playing at that level. So for me, it's a sense of achievement to see them go and do that. I mean, some of them's found drink and women and stop playing, but that's part and parcel of it, isn't it?
I've had a few alive when we used to run the Sherburn team, like you say, a couple went on to play good level of football, and like you say, some, as soon as they hit that 16, 17, find the drink, it's a different story for some. And before we get into holding the quick fire, and the quick fire round as well, I just want to say a massive thank you everyone still tuning in. I really appreciate support as always. Any comments, get them in as well, and please hit that subscribe button as well. But on to Horde now, and being there for the last 3 years, a great, fantastic club. I know we've had a couple of lads on the channel as well. Enjoying your time there?
Love it, mate. Love everything about it. I could punch some of the heads in at times, like, but I mean, I wasn't really. All my time when I was coaching youth football, I had no intentions to get back to adult football. Had a couple offers along the way, a couple of decent offers. Would I come in? Would I want to work with him? And I was just like, my plan always was get me oldest to out on the 18s. Hopefully, he goes and finds an adult team, and then just stand back as a parent and watch. Obviously, we went to Horden as under 18s, but they were playing a year above themselves. This was like in lockdown, when you were allowed to play, then they stopped. And I got in touch with Graham Weatherall at the time, and he arranged a meeting, and we took the lads down. Cut a long story short, so obviously in the meantime, we trained on this pitch. I got to know. I mean, I knew of Johnny. I played against him a few times, and we obviously got taught. And as the season grew on, it was like they were in the Wayside League at the time, they were competing to win it. And he was asking, is there anything in the under 18s? Have a look, and I was like, look, in my opinion, he looked at Jack Maskell and Ethan Ord straight away, and them two were ready at 17. So I think Ord actually signed for Eason as well as playing, and then Jack signed for Horden. So we're both still playing our way in. Long story short is, we got to the end of the season, and Johnny says, would you be interested in coming on board with us next year? And I was sort of interested, and I was like, go on, we'll give it a go and see how it goes. And it's probably the best decision I've ever made. I mean, Johnny's, we point on this, obviously, you mentioned Gaz Payson before. I mean, knew Gaz well. Gaz was a great bloke, bless him. There's a difference between a coach and a manager. And for me, coaching badges are, so you send a coach or somebody to Durham FA to do a coaching badge, and they'll do the level 1, level 2, UEFA B. So why the teams, when the Dog and Duck in the Northern League are putting out their managers rapidly, and they want a job advertising on the bottom, must be at least level 2 or UEFA B. Why should a manager be UEFA B or level 2? Because a manager doesn't go on a Durham FA course, because how can Durham FA make a manager be somebody who can answer the phone 24/7? Somebody who on it, not chew or constantly phone, or who can be probably a social worker, who can deal with putting out different fires all the time. And that's what Johnny does. And Gaz Pearson was really good at it. Swaz was really good at it. You always find a good manager has the same players who, I mean, I'll use Gaz as an instance, bless him. So Gaz Crook they won the league at Crook, and then they went from Crook to Ryop, and he had the majority of the same players over a 10-year period. That's a good manager, that, because you're not losing players.
Yeah,
Swaz was the
exactly.
same. Had and that's what Johnny's like. And when you meet Johnny, you can't help but like him. I don't know anybody who's got a bad word about him. Probably tells that he's hard as fuck, like, but he obviously got me involved, and we just grew from there. So obviously, first season, we started getting other people around the committee and chairman and stuff, and all really, really good people, really good people. Want what's best for the club. First season was like, look, let's see if we can stop up. And then we found ourselves with about 10 games to go. Like, we've got out a chance to make the playoffs here. And I think we felt like 2 games short. And it was the majority of the side was what John had in the Wayside League, but we did add to it. We were obviously we've got young Keogh Campbell who had just come back from America. Mark Ellison coming from West Auckland. We've got Ollie Hotchkiss towards the back end of the season. Young Jack Master coming out the 18s, and we took a couple of the 18s in with what he had. And I mean, that's a credit to John. That though, this is the type of bloke he is, because he got Mark Ellison coming over, who wasn't enjoying himself at West Auckland, to come and play for Horton for next to nothing. Got Ollie Hutchins to leave, but not leave, would come from Bishop Auckland, and that's what John can do. He can pull that in, and you just feel really at home there. Like it's a really good like environment to be in. Obviously, then we moved on to the second season. That's probably my best season ever in football. We had the Vars run. There's a momentum we had, and just a team spirit. It was a great season. But then at the end of that season, when you've had a good season, people's going to come looking at your players, which is understandable. We didn't have a massive budget. People would say, "Oh, you've got him there and here's that." We don't pay a lot of money out. They get a little bit, but not a lot. Obviously, Ollie got injured. Probably with about 15 games to go, and bless him, probably finished his playing career at that level. So we lost Ollie. He took the decent job at the end of the second season. Jack was always going to go. He was flying. He eventually went to Dunstan, and he's kicked right on there. And that's what you want to see. Yeah. I mean, Jack's one of them. I remember Jack at 13, 14 doing what he's doing now. If he had half a brain, he'd probably be a pro. That wasn't a dig, by the way. So you had obviously we've lost Jack, we lost Mark Ellison about 2-3 games in. But don't get us wrong, we've replaced him with Billy Town, sacked their manager. Might help when you work that out. So you finish runners up. You finish beating on penalties in the playoff final, and you get sacked. Can't go about that one out, can you? So obviously Billy Town managed came Waterway, and obviously we got Pound in Minter. Taylor Campbell been a great little signing. We actually got his brother-in-law, his stepbrother, to work on the committee, Skids. He does well on the committee, Taylor's brother. But we've got obviously Ross Kitson in there, and there's still a nucleus of 7-8 players who have been there from the Wayside League days. So this season's been a little bit of a funny one, as in we've really struggled with injuries. 3 or 4 ligaments, not massively, but they're back playing now. But I mean, everybody is. It's excuses in football, but just this weather as well. I mean, there's a lot of postponements being going on, and nobody getting momentum. Horrible. But what's going to happen is this last 20 games, it could go either way. I mean, Blythe win it for me. Blythe will win it hands down. Yeah. But then it's probably 10 teams chasing 4 playoff spots. Bedlington probably creeping away. Blue Star had obviously a mid-season spin, but we're looking over our shoulder. We are looking at probably 3 or 4 teams who could, if they get a bit of momentum, they could catch you. So it's got to make them a decent end of the season, but it's just going to be crazy. 3.
It's going to be exciting.
4 games a week.
I just think I lost you the end of your second. Yeah. I'm just commenting there as well. So well done to Johnny and Andy for where they've came. Great people to talk to and amazing people to have around the place as well. Great guys. Ian's just asking, Andy, have you unearthed anyone famous going on to play?
Ian. Trying to think who Ian will be. Anyone famous? We had young Joe Hughes at 10s, 11s who Sunderland actually to Man United. Burton, I believe, at the minute. He's 20.
Yes,
he scored his debut the other week, actually. Joe will have a good career in non-league football. He's a lad from Durham. I mean, Joe, 10, 11-year-old, you could see he was going to be a player. Logan Pye was a great player under 15, 16. Again, Sunderland sold him to Man United. I thought Logan would have kicked on by now. I think he's just been sold to Burnley. After seeing it, you've got to. I mean, Stanley, Miley, Louis, little one. Ellis was a really, really good player as a young lad, and I don't know if he must be injured. I mean, I haven't been to his mum and dad for a while. But you're watching Ellis as a young age, and you think, you're going to go on pro. But it's that age, and it's 17, 18, 19. I think they've got to carry a little.
It is, isn't it? No, 100%. And Ian's just asking, who do you actually support as well? Coming in from Ian there.
I don't support anybody. As a young lad, it would have been Liverpool because of, I think it was the only team that was in the FA Cup finals in the 80s. Then, as I got gradually a little bit as a young lad, you can go to the match yourself. A few of my mates used to go across and support Newcastle, but you couldn't pay us to go and watch a professional game now. If you give us a free ticket and a day pass out, I wouldn't go. I think it's just all commercial, and it's. I watch football on the telly, but I wouldn't have a pro game. Give us an ordinary game all day long.
Brilliant, isn't it? And on our quick fire round, really looking forward to this one. I'm going to split a little bit, as we said, between manager and coaching as well. So really looking forward to this one. So the best manager that you've worked under and why?
You know what it is? It would be Tommy Marron. But just Tommy Marron at Berkeley. Craig Marron's late dad. Tommy was just my type of bloke. Nice, huh? He was rough. He told you how it was. Little fella. He was ex-pro in Scotland, very broad Scottish accent. At the time when you played in the 90s and early 90s, and that, it wasn't tracksuit and stuff. You would wear like a shirt and tie, but Tommy would always have his shirt and tie on. But any little fella, but fiery, but just a great bloke. And you know, he would give you in the dressing rooms at half time if you hadn't been, you know, if you want to pull on your weight and stuff. But he'd have your back. You know, if something went on the pitch, you'd always see Tommy getting mucked in somewhere. Just a great all-round bloke. I mean, going on the drink with Tommy after the game, and that's just, he's like, I would have run through a brick wall for Tommy, like, just for what he'd give you.
Class. And like you say, there is a difference between that manager and the coach. And who would be the best coach that you've worked under?
Not so much of I've worked under. Well, I did work under, I suppose, but the best coach I've seen put a session on would be Martin Scott, who ran in Protect and the sessions in Protect. I learned so much off him just watching the way he coaches. His philosophy was he wanted this group of kids to have 1,000 to 1,500 touches of the ball in an hour and a half. Everything was fast-paced, 1v1s, 2v2s, all ball manipulation. I call them Protect kids. When watching the game situation, so good at little tight areas and never wasted the ball. Technically, Scotty was fantastic, and the way he was with kids as well. I copied a lot off him. He would be a bit brutal, but in a good way, and I'd like toughen them up mentally as well. And if you weren't up to it, then you weren't up to it. But Scotty was probably the best I've seen.
And the best opposition player that you've played against?
Best opposition player I ever played against when playing would have been, when I first started playing in the Northern League, would have been John Milner at Bedlington. Just an absolute goal machine. Bedlington bossed the league for must have been about a year. But then later on, Gav Cogden. Gav should have played pro, in my opinion. Gav was exceptional.
Great player.
Had everything. But that would be between the two of them, if not both of them, John and Gav.
And who would be the toughest player that you've played against?
toughest player I've ever come across when playing would be Reggie Pearson. It's Gaz's brother, Gaz's older brother. He got called Reggie, but he was called Alan Pearson. But Reggie would have been probably 4 or 5 years older than Gaz. It was a centre mid, but then he dropped to the centre half as he got older. But I mean, he was a lovely lad off the pitch. Still is, obviously, bless him. But Reggie was tough. Like, I remember once he was playing for Hetton Lions, and I was playing up front for Burma, and the balls bounced where one of them where you think, if I pull out of this, I'm going to look stupid. So it was a 50-50, and I knew Reggie was coming. I thought, I'm going to have to throw my body in. I actually had to come off a whiplash. Like, my body must have just shook and gone like that. And it was like, I mean, he would come and see you after and you have a couple of pints of, but I mean, he was 6'2", solid, lovely fella, but it just didn't like playing against Reggie at all.
Excellent, man. What would be your aims now, kind of going forward in coaching, and the most enjoyable thing that you've done so far coaching as well?
I just think it's just helping produce players try to become better, even if it's just that little 1% of that fine margin. If you can help them become a better player, or mentally tougher, or just keep. I mean, I'm always going to be involved in football at some stage wherever I go, because it's in you, isn't it? It's either in you or it's not. And
yeah,
I'll always be involved, but it's just trying to help somebody improve. Does people take my advice? Probably not, but maybe that one person might, and maybe that I can help that one person improve. You know, that's why I've always been in it, really.
Excellent. But no, honestly, thank you so much for coming on, Andy. Like, I just love your passion, like you say, for coaching, for football, and it's just great to hear so many stories, like you say, especially the Eastern story, and letting so many people that's who's watching now still as well kind of know what goes on in the background of football clubs, obviously your coaching side of things, managing. Really enjoy the show. So thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Not a problem, mate. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Back next week, Wednesday, Thursday. On the Wednesday, we've got our Step 1 to 4 February review show, and on the Thursday night, we've got our Northern League February review show as well. So keep your eyes out for them next week. But again, everyone that's been watching, thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. We'll see you next week.